It was a normal Monday evening at Iron Roots Jiu-Jitsu Academy in Austin, Texas. The mats were full of people. Some were regular students, some were trying their first class, and a few were loud newcomers who believed they already knew everything. Among them was a quiet woman in her mid-30s named Grace. She wore a plain white gi, her brown hair tied neatly into a tight braid, and a simple white belt around her waist. Almost no one noticed her. Grace had signed up for a free trial class without saying much. She stretched quietly in the corner while others talked loudly about UFC fights, past tournaments, and hard sparring rounds. She looked ordinary, calm, and almost invisible in a room full of confident voices and big personalities. Then there was Bryce. Bryce was loud, muscular, and proud of it. A blue belt who loved attention, he enjoyed showing off in front of new students. When he noticed Grace warming up, he smirked and leaned toward the instructor. "Hey, coach," Bryce said with a laugh. "You letting soccer moms join now? This a self-defense class or real jiu-jitsu?" A few students laughed. Grace didn't react. She kept stretching, her face calm. Coach Marco, a strong purple belt with years on the mats, looked at Bryce and shrugged. "Everyone starts somewhere," he said. "Let's see how people roll before we talk trash." As class began, Grace followed every instruction quietly. Her movements were smooth, controlled, and surprisingly sharp. She didn't look confused or lost. She didn't ask questions. She flowed through drills with a strange mix of patience and accuracy. Still, most people assumed she was just copying well or maybe had watched a few online videos before coming in. When it was time to spar, Bryce immediately raised his hand. "I'll roll with her," he said, cracking his knuckles. "Don't worry, white belt. I'll go easy." Grace looked at him and gave a small, polite smile. "Okay." They slapped hands and bumped fists. Bryce rushed forward, confident and aggressive, trying to pass her guard quickly. But Grace shifted her hips at the perfect moment, trapped his arm, and swept him cleanly with a smooth scissor sweep. In a second, Bryce was flat on his back, shocked. Before he could react, Grace had already moved into mount. The room grew quiet. Bryce tried to back and bridge, using strength to escape, but Grace stayed balanced and calm, adjusting her weight like water flowing around stone. She isolated his arm without force and smoothly locked in an armbar. Tap, tap, tap. Bryce tapped fast. Silence filled the room. Coach Marco lifted an eyebrow. "Let's go again," he said. Bryce's face turned red, but he nodded and came back harder, trying to prove something. This time, Grace caught him in a triangle choke so clean and controlled it looked effortless. Tap again. Now everyone was watching. Even Marco leaned forward. Grace released the hold, stood up, and helped Bryce to his feet. She bowed slightly. Marco walked over, curiosity clear on his face. "Who taught you to move like that?" Grace paused for a moment. "I trained under Master Sean Silva in Rio," she said softly. "But that was a long time ago." The room froze. Sean Silva was a legendary world champion. Training under him wasn't casual. It meant serious, high-level skill. Grace looked around and added quietly, "I haven't trained in years. Life happened. I just wanted to come back." The students who had ignored her now stared with respect. Bryce, rubbing his arm and swallowing his pride, nodded slowly. "You're legit," he said. Grace smiled gently. "Thanks. You're strong. Just need to breathe more." That night, everyone saw her differently. She wasn't just the quiet woman or the new white belt. She was something deeper, someone worth paying attention to. Word spread fast. By the next class, whispers filled the academy before Grace even stepped on the mats. People from other gyms heard about the white belt who tapped a blue belt twice. Some believed it, some didn't. One of the doctors was Eric London, a visiting black belt who taught at a well-known gym downtown. 2 days later, he walked into Iron Roots. Eric was tall, lean, and calm, with the quiet confidence of someone who had spent a lifetime training. He greeted Coach Marco with a nod. Didn't expect to see you here, Marco said. Eric shrugged. Just curious. Heard some interesting things about one of your new students. Grace arrived a few minutes later wearing the same plain gi and white belt. She tied it carefully and went to her usual corner to stretch. Eric noticed her right away. Calm posture, focused eyes, nothing flashy. That's her, he asked quietly. Marco nodded. Yeah, she's precise, very controlled. Class started. Grace drilled like before, smooth and relaxed. This time, more eyes followed her movements. When sparring time came, Eric stood and walked toward her. Would you like to roll? He asked politely. Grace looked up, slightly surprised. Sure. They bowed, slapped hands, and bumped fists. For the first minute, neither rushed. They moved carefully, testing each other like a slow chess match. Eric tried pressure. Grace gave him nothing. He attempted a pass. She adjusted perfectly. The room fell silent again. Then Eric made one small mistake. As he reached for a grip, Grace moved into the la riva guard, rolled smoothly, and took his back in one clean motion. Eric stiffened, surprised, and tried to turn. Grace stayed calm. She didn't rush. She set the choke slowly, perfectly, and tightened just enough. Eric tapped. No one spoke. Grace released the hold and helped him up. Thank you, she said with a respectful bow. Eric stood still for a moment. Then he smiled. You trained under Sean Silva, didn't you? Grace blinked. Yes, I rolled with him once, Eric said. Grace smiled softly. Same here. After class, Coach Marco approached her. Why didn't you say anything? You're clearly not a beginner. Grace shook her head. I walked away from Jiu-Jitsu years ago. After my daughter was born, after my husband died. I wasn't sure I still belonged. Marco nodded slowly. You do. More than you know. Eric agreed. If you ever want to teach, any gym would be lucky. Grace looked around. The same people who once ignored her now watched with respect and admiration. Later that night, a few women came up to her quietly. Would you consider teaching a women's self-defense class here? One asked. You inspire us. Grace paused, then smiled. Yeah, I think I would. The next week, a small poster appeared at the front desk of Iron Roots. Women's self-defense, Coach Grace, black belt, Sean Silva lineage. In that class, the woman who was once invisible helped others find confidence, strength, and their voice. She didn't return to prove anything. She came back to remember who she was. And she did.